Okay, so let's get right into it. We're going to break down one of the most intense debates shaping the future of the internet. We're talking about the push for governments and platforms to know who you are and what you're saying online. Now, this isn't some fringe idea. It's a huge global conversation, and it's being driven by some really powerful arguments for safety and security. So today, we're going to explore the case they're making.
And really, this is the question at the heart of it all. Why? All around the world, from Washington to London to Brussels, governments are pushing for new rules that could totally change how we experience the internet. Now, the people who support these changes, they frame them as absolutely essential tools for making the world a safer place. So what exactly is their argument?
You'll find that the case for this new era of digital oversight, it really rests on two major pillars. They're separate ideas, but they're almost always presented together, like a package deal to fix the internet's biggest problems.
And it all comes down to these two things. First, identity and age verification, so they know who is behind the screen. And second, getting access to our encrypted messages, so they can know what people are saying. So let's tackle that first pillar, the demand to verify a user's age and, in some cases, their actual real-world identity. The reasons they give are pretty wide-ranging, but they usually start with a single, very powerful appeal.
And this right here, this gets to the emotional core of the whole argument. Advocates say that creating these kinds of digital barriers isn't just a good idea, it's a moral imperative. The goal is to shield kids from adult content. You know, everything from pornography to graphic violence, which they argue can cause real, lasting psychological damage.
And to really get the scale of what they're talking about, look at this number. According to Pew Research, a wild 95% of American teenagers are on social media. For proponents of verification, this stat proves just how deep the digital world is in a young person's life, which they say makes exposure to harmful stuff almost inevitable without some stronger rules in place.
And that exposure, it's very real. Studies that advocates often point to suggest that 67%, that's 2/3 of minors, run into potentially harmful content. We're talking extremist propaganda, unsolicited sexual material, all before they even turn 15. This is a key statistic they use to justify building proactive, platform-wide barriers.
The data gets even more specific and honestly more concerning. Research pretty consistently shows that the average age for a kid's first encounter with online porn is right around 13, and a lot of the time it's not even intentional. This is the kind of data point that makes that abstract threat of harmful content feel very, very real and immediate.
So you might be thinking, okay, but what about parental controls? Well, advocates argue there's a pretty big awareness gap. Data suggests that only about 40% of parents feel like they really know what their kids are up to online. The argument here is that parents are just overwhelmed, which justifies needing automated, system-wide solutions that don't depend on them alone.
And the case for verification, it quickly grows way beyond just blocking explicit content. Proponents pitch it as a kind of silver bullet for a whole list of digital problems. Stopping predators, shutting down cyberbullies, fighting social media addiction, protecting youth mental health, even things like combating fraud. Proponents will also tell you that this isn't some radical new idea, but actually just the next logical step. They'll point to laws that have been around for a while, like the U.S. Children's Online Privacy Protection Act from way back in 1998, or the U.K.'s more recent Design Code, as proof that age-based rules have been part of internet governance for a long time.
And ultimately, the argument gets even bigger than just age. The core belief here is that online anonymity itself is the real problem. The argument goes that if you tie every online account to a real-world ID, you create accountability, you deter bad behavior, and you end up with more civil, safer online communities for absolutely everyone.
Okay, let's switch gears and move to that second pillar, the push to get access to encrypted communications. So if age verification is about knowing who is online, this part is all about knowing what they're saying, at least when law enforcement says it's necessary.
And right away, you can see the strategy is similar. The argument is anchored by another powerful appeal: to protect the most vulnerable among us. Law enforcement and child safety groups argue that end-to-end encryption creates these digital dark spaces where horrible crimes against children, especially the sharing of child sexual abuse material, or CSAM, can happen completely unchecked.
But their argument is that CSAM is just the tip of the iceberg. Law enforcement and intelligence agencies claim these same secure channels are also the tools used to plan terrorist attacks, run massive criminal empires, and even launch attacks on critical national infrastructure.
And from their point of view, the scope of this problem is just enormous. We're not talking about petty crime. They point to transnational drug cartels coordinating shipments, human traffickers managing their victims, and ransomware gangs negotiating multi-million-dollar payouts. And they claim it's all happening behind this impenetrable wall of encryption.
And this is where the stakes get raised even higher, into national security territory. Proponents argue that the systems we all depend on every single day, our power grid, our water, our transportation networks, are all vulnerable to cyber attacks that are being planned and coordinated on these encrypted platforms. They say that getting access is vital to preventing a potential catastrophe.
So this all feeds into what law enforcement calls the going dark problem. Their argument is that for the first time in history, there's a way for people to communicate that is totally immune to a legal court-ordered warrant. And for them, that means losing crucial evidence, being unable to monitor threats as they happen, and just watching investigations grind to a complete halt.
And listen, this isn't just some theoretical debate. This is happening right now. Democratic governments all over the world are already taking action. You've got the UK's Snoopers Charter, Australia's Assistance and Access Act. There is a very clear global trend of laws that force tech companies to provide what they call lawful access to user data.
So, when you put these two big ideas together, verifying who everyone is and getting access to their private conversations, a really clear picture for the future of the internet starts to emerge.
This is the world the proponents are pushing for. It's a digital world that's built on the ideas of traceability and accessibility, right? A place where anonymity is basically gone, and our private communications are subject to inspection if a government says so. They present this as a totally necessary trade-off, a way to finally bring safety and order to the Wild West of the internet.
And that brings us right back to the core tension. The case for all of these measures is built on a powerful promise: protecting children, stopping criminals, and defending entire nations. But as this debate moves from just talk into actual law, it forces every single one of us to think about where we draw that line and what kind of internet we really want for the future.